I am Dr. P. N. Lakshmi Shanmugam, Assistant Professor, Department of Educational Psychology, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai. Let us see about the topic variable. After completing the module, the prospective teachers are able to know the meaning of variable, differentiate concept and variable, understand the types of variable, identify examples for each variable, develop the interest to differentiate one type of variable from another type of variable. Whether we accept it or not, we all make valuable judgments constantly in our daily lives. This food is excellent. I could not sleep well last night. I do not like this. I think this is wonderful. A particular food may be judged excellent by one person, but awful by another, and something else could be wonderful to one person but ugly to another. Let us take the same issues at another level. The program is effective. This program is not effective. We are providing a quality service to our clients. This is a waste of time in this institutions. There is no accountability in this office. What is a variable? A variable is any characteristic or property that can take on different variables or attributes. An image, perception or concept that is capable of measurements, hence capable of taking on different values, is called a variable. In other words, a concept that can be measured is called a variable. According to Kerlinger, a variable is a property that takes on different values. Concepts are mental images or perceptions, and therefore their meanings vary markedly from individual to individual, whereas variables are measurable, of course, with varying degrees of accuracy. Measurability is the main difference between a concept and a variable. A concept cannot be measured, whereas a variable can be subjected to measurements by crude, refined, or subjective, objective units of measurements. Concepts are subjective impressions. Their understanding may differ from person to person, which if measured would cause problems in comparing responses. Concept example effectiveness, variable example gender, attitude, age, income, weight, height. Here variable measurable, though the degree of precision varies from scale to scale and variable to variable. Concepts, indicators, variables. If you are using a concept in your study, you need to consider its operationalization, that is how it will be measured. In most cases, to operationalization a concept, you first need to go through the process of identifying indicators, a set of criteria reflective of the concept which can then be converted into variables. The choice of indicators for a concept might vary with the researcher, but those selected must have a logical link with the concept. Converting concepts into variables. Concepts rich example, indicators income assets, variables income per year, total value of home, boat, car investments, decision if it is greater than or if it is less than. Types of variables. A variable can be classified in a number of ways. The classification developed here results from looking at variables in three different ways: the causal relationship, the design of the study, and the unit of measurement. From the viewpoint of causation in studies that attempt to investigate a causal relationship or association, four sets of variables may operate: change variables, which are responsible for bringing about change in a phenomenon; outcome variable, which are the effects of a change variable; variables which affect the link between cause and effect variables; and connecting or linking variables, which in certain situations are necessary to complete the relationship between cause and effect variables. Cause, effect, here variables that affect the relationship. Change variables are called independent variables. Outcome effect variables are called dependent variables. The unmeasured variables affecting the cause and effect relationship are called extraneous variables, and the variables that link a cause and effect relationship are called intervening variables. Independent variable, variable that is changed amount of water. Dependent variable, variable affected by the change, size of plant, number of leaves, living or dead. Types of variables. Independent variable, the cause supposed to be responsible for bringing about change in a phenomenon variable. Dependent variable, the outcome of the change brought about by changes in an independent variable. Extraneous variable, several other factors operating in real life situation may affect changes attributed to independent variables. These factors not measured in the study may increase or decrease the magnitude or strength of the relationship between independent and dependent variables. There are 4 types of extraneous variable. Situational variables, these are aspects of the environment that might affect the participants' behavior. Example, noise, temperature, lighting conditions, etc. Situational variables should be controlled, or so they are the same for all participants. Participant person variable, this refers to the ways in which each participant varies from the other and how this could affect the results. Example, mood, intelligence, anxiety, nerves, concentration, etc. For example, if a participant that has performed a memory test was tired, dyslexic, or had poor eyesight, this could affect their performance and the results of the experiment. Participant variables can be controlled using the random allocation to the conditions of the independent variable. Experimental investigator effects. The experimenter unconsciously conveys to participants how they should behave. This is called experimental bias. The experiment might do this by giving unintentional clues to the participants about what the experiment is about and how they expect them to behave. This affects the participants' behavior. Also, the personal attributes of the experiment can affect the behavior of the participants. Demand characteristics. Participants will be affected by their surroundings, the researcher's characteristics, the researcher's behavior, their interruption of what is going on in the situation. Experimenters should attempt to minimize these factors by keeping the environment as natural as possible, carefully following standardized procedures. Intervening variables. Intervening variable, sometimes called the confounding variable, links the dependent and independent variables. In certain situations, the relationship between an independent and dependent variable cannot be established without the intervention of another variable. The cause variable will have the assumed effect only in the presence of an intervening variables. Independent, dependent, extraneous variable in a causal relationship. Smoking, this is an independent variable. Dependent variable, cancer. Extraneous variable affect the relationship between the independent variable and dependent variable. Example, the age of the person, the extent of his or her smoking, the duration of smoking, the extent of daily exercise. Sets of variables in counseling and marriage problems. These are another example. From the viewpoint of the study design, a study that examines association or causation may be controlled, contrived experiment, a quasi-experiment, or an ex post facto study. In controlled experiments, the independent variable may be introduced or manipulated either by the researcher or by someone else who is providing the service. In these situations, there are 2 sets of variables: active variables, those variables that can be manipulated, changed, or controlled; attribute variables, those that cannot be manipulated, changed, or controlled, and reflect the characteristics of the study population. Example, age, gender, education, and income. Suppose a study is designed to measure the relative effectiveness of 3 teaching models. The structure and contents of these models could vary, and any model might be tested on any population group. The content structure, testability of a model on a population group may also vary from a researcher to researcher. On the other hand, a researcher does not have any control over characteristics of the student population, such as their age, gender, or motivations to study. Study intervention, study populations, different teaching models, here populations, age and gender. Active variables, here attribute variables. A researcher can manipulate active variables, a researcher cannot manipulate the attribute variables. From the viewpoint of the unit of measurement, there are 2 ways of categorizing variables: whether the unit of measurement is categorical or continuous in nature, and whether it is qualitative or quantitative in nature. The variables thus classified are called categorical and continuous and qualitative and quantitative. On the whole, there is very little difference between categorical and qualitative and between continuous and quantitative variables. The slight difference between them is explained. Categorical variables are measured on nominal or ordinal measurement scales, whereas for continuous variables, the measurements are made either on an interval or ratio scale. Categorical variables can be three types: constant, dichotomous, and polytomous. When a variable can have only one value or category, it is known as a constant. When a variable can have only two categories, as an yes or no, bad, good, rich, poor, it is known as dichotomous variable. When a variable can be divided into more than two categories, example religion, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, it is called as polytomous variable. Continuous variables, on the other hand, have continuity in their measurement. For example, age, income, and attitude score. In any ways, qualitative variables are similar to categorical ones, as both use either nominal or ordinal measurement scales. However, there are some differences. For example, it is possible to develop categories on the basis of measurements made on a continuous scale, such as measuring the income of a population in dollars, and since then developing categories such as low, middle, and high income. Categorical, continuous, qualitative, quantitative. Constant, the categorical, here there are three types: constant, dichotomous, polytomous. Example, water, yes or no, attitude, strongly favorable, favorable, uncertain, strongly unfavorable. Continuous, income, age, weight. Qualitative, gender, female, male, educational level, age, income. Quantitative, educational levels, number of years completed. These are the examples. Although this distinction exists for most practical purposes, there is no real difference between categorical and qualitative variables or between continuous and quantitative variables. A dash as dear learners, try to attend this assessment program. A dash is a property that takes on different values. A dash are mental images and their meanings vary from individual to individual. Dash is the main difference between a concept and a variable. Effect variables are also called as dash. Answer is also given here for your reference. Kindly check. The unmeasured variables affecting the cause and effect relationship are called. Which one is not the extraneous variable? The variables that link a cause and effect relationship are called dash variables. When a variable have only two categories, it is known as a dash variable. Dash variables can be manipulated, changed, or controlled. When a variable can be divided into more than two categories, it is called a dash variable. Thank you.